All right, everybody, we are live with the CombatCast. Back at it again, folks. And we're going to talk about upcoming fights. We're going to talk about this past weekend's fights. A little Silva Paul. I'm losing my voice here. But before we get anything, here's the AJ's favorite intro video. Are you a fan of pro wrestling, comedy, and combat sports? Then we have the podcast for you because we cover that and much, much more.
Do you like to debate with your friends? Do we have the perfect segment for you? It's the 531, where we take any given subject, break it down to a top 5. From there, we debate it down to 3, and then into that number 1 spot.
If you want to get a hold of us, find us on our social medias. Search Working Fans Podcast on any major social media platform. And if you want to find the podcast, search for us on any major podcast platform, as well as YouTube.
Working Fans Podcast. We put in the work so you don't have to.
All right, fans, welcome back. Chevy, what do we got coming up?
All right, November 12th, we're going to be previewing UFC 281 Adesanya versus Pierre, a huge fight from MSG. We're looking forward to that.
Yes.
Then November 19th, UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Spivak. We're always big fans of the Black Beast, and that'll be a 4 p.m. Eastern card, so we're looking forward to those. Always love those early ones. And then the end of the month, November 26th, there's no UFC fights, but the 2022 PFL season championships are that weekend, so we'll be previewing those.
All right, so some good stuff coming up. What do we want to talk about?
Well, let's talk about after last week. Got me thinking a little bit. Are fighters overtraining? Because we've had this year, we've seen quite a few injuries in main events in particular. Obviously, they're not only happening in main events. With the last week, we talked about TJ Dillashaw in the co-main, but a couple notable ones I want to point out. Earlier this year, Brian Ortega had that shoulder injury versus Yair. Obviously, he was putting that arm bar, but he had previous shoulder issues before. Tom Aspinall had that knee injury versus Curtis Blades. I don't know if he had any injuries going into it, but, any overtraining beforehand can weaken those tendons. And then obviously we'll get into it, but Calvin Kattar's knee injury versus Arnold Allen last week. So I'm just curious if, we are seeing the best of the best. This is the, quote unquote golden age for MMA at this point. We're seeing everyone is at the top level. With that, does that come with any overtraining, do you think?
I mean, if you look at this year, it seems to be hitting us hard, but we've had this problem in the past. And if you remember particularly, it was the AKA camp too. It was, Rockhold.
Hard sparring camp.
Yes, it was with Cormier, Kane, and Habib. And one of the things, too, about Habib was that sometimes he would get these injuries and he would not fight. Because, again, we talked about it last week, I believe, where he was really protective of his record and his legacy, and he would only want to fight. And so, it's very interesting. It's hard to say if it's all overtraining or this is maybe we need we're waiting for that next big thing with a break in sports medicine, right? And rehab.
Recovery, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I always look back to the story in the career of Robbie Lawler, how he notoriously got rocked real bad and got knocked out a couple times. So he started not sparring in coming up for fights. And, he has a successful career, but then he got back in the UFC and he said, okay, I'm going to spar now hard. But it was taking those years off, still learning, but protecting himself. It made him such a threat, and he had that good run when he first got back into the UFC. And I think there's always something to that. Recovery versus, your training. And it's very interesting. It's funny. This is maybe a little out there, but I'd be interested in to see a guy like Sean O'Malley's training, because Sean O'Malley, for all his haters, and Lord knows I get it, but I mean, like, he seems like he'd probably be a real new school guy, and I'd be curious like what he does to try to stay injury free. And he's obviously a guy that's improving, So like, I don't know. I maybe a bunch of these athletes just to see what they're doing to stay healthy versus some of these other guys who are just, they're training hard. Obviously, they're getting beat up. I mean, I don't know. And it's just, maybe it's just we need to have a better recovery system.
Yeah, I know a lot of fighters. Max Holloway, I don't think he does sparring anymore. I think Cowboy had cut out sparring before he retired. I know a lot of fighters say that, once you have had a certain amount of fights, like, how to fight, you just need to work on staying sharp, and, not taking damage is a super important component to a long and successful career, obviously. So,
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever it is, hopefully the sport can figure it out soon, because obviously I'm not the only one that is disappointed with these main events, ending in some terrible injury. That's not how anyone wants to see them end, neither fighter or the fans.
Yeah, what's funny too is and some of the guys who like have injuries but fight hurt, like a Robbie Lawler or a Matt Brown, are some of the most exciting fighters still too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I see Cage My IQ talking about staying sharp and getting weight in check too. It definitely feels like we've had a lot of weight issues this year too.
Right, missing, weight cutting, if you have a bad weight cut, that can affect your body so much as well too, especially when it comes to like knockouts. You have the lower hydration levels in your brain, you're more susceptible to knockouts, and, in traumatic brain injuries to go with those knockouts. So, yeah, weight cutting, I wish they could get rid of it in the sport. Doesn't seem to be any way to do it. So, until they figure that out, I think we're just going to have to deal with it for now. But yeah, some advancement in recovery after all these super hard trainings might help out. I don't know if anyone's got any ideas. It's $1 million idea right now. So
you think that we would benefit if we had more of a weight allowance?
You mean as far as like missing weight?
Yeah, like, well, we said, okay, so you got to be 170 to fight for the welterweight title, but maybe we could just make the titles 170 to 175, middleweight, I don't know. I'm just saying, like,
guys are going to push it to the limit no matter what.
Right.
They'll just cut to 175. Yeah. They're going to, that's the way fighters are. So they're looking for any advantage they can get, and being the bigger guy in there is an advantage. So they're going to figure it out. So.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to last week's fights. Fight night, Cater versus Allen. Couple of prelims that we were looking forward to. The young Chase Hooper fought relatively unknown to us anyway, Steve Garcia. Garcia gets the round 1 TKO. When I watched the fight, obviously I was hoping that Chase was going to have the improvement in the striking. And unfortunately, he looked slow. His striking's just not up to par. I'm worried that he's not improving fast enough, and he probably doesn't have too many more chances to show what he's got in the UFC before they send him packing. Not necessarily that he won't come back because he's so young, but they might send him out to get his experience somewhere else and hope he can make it back to the UFC.
I'm just looking now. Garcia is 2-2 in the UFC. Mm-hmm. He's 13-5 overall. Both his victories are TKO though.
Right, super powerful striker, and though he landed shots on Chase that hurt him, for sure. Chase was definitely concussed after the fight. You could see it in his eyes. He was not looking so great. So I'll move on to another fight we're looking at. Andrei Arlovsky versus Rogerio de Lima.
Yeah, you called this.
Yeah, Rogerio de Lima, round 1, rear naked choke. When Marcos just swarmed him, and once he got him on the ground, he just sunk in the choke. Arlovsky really had no opportunity to get anything going in the fight. He doesn't rely on his power anymore to win fights. So if somebody just rushes him down and he doesn't get his opportunity to, pick away at them, he's going to get beat in the heavyweight division. And that's what happened here. Marcos, super scary, big, strong heavyweight. So I bet he'll continue to get wins. I don't think Arlovsky's done by any means from this. He just got caught early.
Mm-hmm.
Move on to the main card. So Khalil Roundtree versus Dustin Jacoby. Roundtree got a split decision win. Did you get to see this one?
I did see this one. I'm a big fan of Roundtree, and like I was telling you before, I kind of wanted to throw a few matchups for you after this, and I was thinking about with Roundtree. What do you think about him versus Orion Spann?
Ooh, that's a tough fight for Roundtree for sure, I think.
Yeah, I think it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said before this fight happened, Roundtree has been in and out on deciding whether or not he wants to be in there. If he doesn't want to be in there, he definitely doesn't want to be in there against Ryan Spann.
No, probably
he'll
not.
get put to sleep for sure. Yeah. But as Cage My IQ was alluding to in the fight, it was a very close fight. But I didn't think that Roundtree had done enough to get the win. Dustin was definitely more active. He landed way more strikes. Roundtree had his spots in the fight where he landed some good shots, but it was a close fight. I won't call it a robbery, but I definitely was leaning towards Jacoby. Kind of got screwed. So bummer for him. I'm sure he'll go on, put that one behind him. He'll be fine. And I don't know. We never know what's going to go on with Roundtree, whether he's going to be back or not.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm amazed he's still been around. I mean, he's had some impressive performances, but like you said, he's in and out, and you never know what you're going to get. And sometimes he just looks fantastic. Yeah, he looks unbelievable. And then sometimes it's like, oh, where did this guy?
Yeah, he had that fight against Bukakis where he destroyed his knee with those leg stomps.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he looked like a world beater that fight, amazing. So if he looked like that every time, he'd be the champ. So
you know what? I would say Uriah Hall is another guy who was always like that too.
Similar.
In and out. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, we can talk about that too. We'll talk about the
I know.
Yeah. We skipped over that. We'll talk about the Jake Paul.
We'll talk about a little Jake Paul. But I did not see the next two fights, but just please give us your opinion on those two fights.
Yeah, so Trajan Gord versus Josh Fremd. Trajan got the W with a round 2 submission. So not how I saw him getting it done with his power, but Josh was doing well on the feet, but he just kept his head in too long on a takedown attempt and got his neck snatched by Trajan. The choke was in super deep, and when he let Josh go, it was a guillotine. And when he let Josh go, his head snapped back so hard, smashed off the canvas. It was a brutal finish as far as guillotines go. So Trajan, is super powerful striker, and if he can add in those submissions to his game, he's going to be dangerous going forward. Let's move on. Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Jared Vanderaa. I had predicted that Vanderaa was going to be dangerous and get a win to keep his job for sure in the UFC, but Acosta got the decision victory. Fight was super close though. Jared was landing a bunch of leg kicks on Waldo that were hurting him for sure, definitely taking effect. Waldo couldn't stop them or check them, and he was doing this weird thing where he was, screaming in Jared's face to, I don't know, try to psych him out or show the judges that it wasn't affecting him, but he just kept stalking forward and, he landed a bunch of heavy shots on Jared, but Jared didn't go out. So props to him. Unfortunately, I assume he probably gets cut this week. I think that's 4 losses in a row.
Oh yeah.
So he's probably going to get cut, but
unless you're Sam Alvey, that's
right. Yeah. So Waldo, he has some stuff to work on, but that was his first, UFC fight after coming off the Contender Series. He showed that he deserves to be in there. He's got a little bit to work on. Definitely some leg kick defense for sure, but very powerful guy, and he's a heavyweight to keep an eye on. And we will move on to Max Griffin versus Tim Means. Very good fight. Yeah. Max Griffin got a split decision win, which I thought he deserved the victory. It was close, but Max was elusive, and he definitely had the power advantage. Tim looked good in some of the exchanges, but I really think the age is just catching up with him at this point. I think he's 35 or something like that. So
did Griffin hurt his hand too?
Yes, he did. He said his hand was numb after the first half of the first round. His hand went numb. So
yeah, because I thought that he would actually. I love Tim Means, but I thought Griffin was going to get the finish here. So when going into the fight, that's what I suspected. So, but I thought he looked good in other ways, like you said, he looked very elusive. And I'm still very high on Max Griffin. I'm very interested to see what the future holds for him. And one of the fights I was telling you before, I was interested in Michel Pereira. I was thinking that would be an interesting fight. Somebody who's a little more, wild and
explosive. Two very explosive guys too. Yeah, that's a great matchup. I'd love to see that one for sure.
Yeah,
Max keeps getting better and better. He's really proving that he can be up there with those top guys very soon. So I imagine he'll get someone like a Pereira, a top guy soon to break into that top 10. So. And then, we're going to move on to the disappointing main event, Arnold Allen versus Calvin Kattar. Arnold Allen gets a round 2, 8 seconds into the second round, TKO via knee injury that was sustained in the first round.
Right.
Unfortunately, Allen didn't really have anything to do with the injury. Kattar, went to throw a flying knee, and Allen was circling away from him, and Kattar just landed awkwardly while he was turning in the air, and he twisted his knee. Definitely tore something. He managed to survive to the end of that first round.
Yeah. And they got his leg going again too.
Yeah. So managed to survive. He was moving around a little bit, but he comes out for that second round. First time Allen backs him up, he goes to plant. And there's actually a really gross slow motion video where you can see that tendon on the right hand side of his right knee. He's stepping back and it tenses, and then just all the tension lets go. So I assume it snapped or tore. And then he went immediately down. So it's obviously disappointing for Kattar. He was trying to get back on track. This doesn't help him. Now he'll be out for a year or so. But also very disappointing. I won't say equally, but very disappointing for Arnold Allen, because he was looking for a decisive win to make a statement to get himself towards the title shot. And unfortunately, this is probably not going to be enough for that.
Well, here's the thing. So my question was going to be, I'd like to see Arnold Allen against Yair Rodriguez next. I think
maybe
that would be
an interim title.
Well, and if Volkanovski is going to be fighting for the lightweight title, and those are two guys that Volkanovski haven't fought yet, Arnold Allen, maybe, again, he didn't get that definitive victory, but 12-fight win streak, 10 wins in the UFC. I mean, and Ortega and Holloway have already gotten their shots.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, that would be an interesting matchup to make. So I'd like to see Yair and Arnold Allen. Yair is always improving, and I'd be very interested to see just how that fight plays out. I'd favor Yair, but I'm interested.
Who do you think matches up better against Volkanovski between those two?
It's funny because I know you were more the Yair fan. Like, I liked him, but the way he just keeps sneakily getting better and better every time, I like Yair. I just like it because of his striking, and he's such a good striker, and he's getting good takedown defense now, and he's got slick with his submissions and stuff too. That I don't know. To me, Yair kind of reminds me of and actually that's a very good question there from Cage My Q. Where does this leave Josh Emmett? Another solid guy with wins and stuff too. I think that Yair, though, I don't know. I think his level of striking, and he's different than Max, whose volume and
He's
everything.
more versatile for sure.
Right. Yeah, and I think Yair presents a unique problem.
Yeah, I haven't been the highest on Yair lately because he doesn't, stay active or whatever. Doesn't have the best mental game in there for sure. But he did show something in that fight against Holloway. He is prepared to go 5 rounds and go to war. And he is very good with that striking. He's very good at keeping the range, which would be a weakness of Volkanovski's for sure. So, and he is also very quick too. So I don't think Volkanovski would have a huge speed advantage, and Yair can keep the distance. And like you said, his takedown defense has been improving. So, I like his chances against Volkanovski, but I also like Arnold Allen's chances against Volkanovski.
Yeah.
Arnold Allen is good everywhere. I think Volkanovski would be more powerful, maybe a little bit faster, but not as technical. I think Arnold Allen can stand up when he gets taken down or stop Volkanovski's takedowns. And I think he could possibly piece Volkanovski up on the feet, but like Cage My IQ said, where does this leave Josh Emmett? It depends on what Volkanovski wants to do, because Emmett definitely deserves to be in the mix as well. He got that win over Cater as well. So
yeah, if he wins the lightweight title, then the division's wide open.
Yeah.
But that's a big if.
For sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's great to have to worry about these things.
It is.
These are the kinds of problems the UFC wants to have. Too many great fighters.
I remember many years ago, UFC did an all heavyweight pay-per-view. It was 5 pay-per-view fights or heavyweight. I'd like to see something like that, with a featherweight or a bantamweight division, and just
welterweight would be good.
Welterweight too, yeah, just because you got so much talent in some of these lighter weight classes that let's clear up some of this stuff here.
Yeah, I would be down for that too. Yeah, they haven't done anything like that in a long time.
No. So Jake Paul, Anderson Silva. Jake Paul, man, assuming this is all on the up and up, sometimes we see things that make me question some of this stuff. But to me, he's gotten to the point that I think I favor him in boxing over any MMA fighter at this point. And I was looking at potential matchups for Jake Paul. And I had obviously he'd like Conor, but I just don't see that happening anytime realistically. I don't
Not
see
right now, yeah.
No, they don't have it. Nate Diaz, I think, makes the most sense. He talked about Floyd Mayweather recently on Ariel Helwani, that he said, if he could get down to 175 and Floyd could do 165, they could maybe make the fight happen. I think that's in the realm of possibility, but I don't think it's going to probably happen either.
I don't think Floyd will. I don't think he would risk that at this point.
It's too dangerous for Floyd.
Too dangerous.
I can't believe I'm saying that, but it really is, because Jake has shown that he has a certain level of boxing skills, nowhere near Floyd, but he's bigger than
Plus
Floyd.
the size advantage, yeah.
Yeah, that size is really the problem. So,
but it would be a big money fight. Also, it'd be a lot of money too. So, if the numbers are right, it's a possibility.
Sure. Absolutely,
I don't see it happening.
Uriah Hall. If they can't get the deal done with Nate Diaz, I think Uriah Hall's the guy. I don't know if it was his trainer. Someone said that he thinks he can beat Jake Paul in boxing if Paul needs some more fights, and if Hall works really hard in trains, he could do that. I see what he's saying. However, I think if they're going to fight Hall, they'll do it soon. They won't allow that potential thing to happen. And right now I can't see Hall beating Jake Paul either.
Hall needs to get his head right if he wants to do that fight, because he squeaked out a victory against Le'Veon Bell, right? Who had 2 wins, 2 boxing fights or whatever, and one was against another NFL player. So no way should that fight have gone. I know it was 4 rounds, but
Right.
no way should that fight have gone the distance. You're right, should have knocked him out, and he didn't. So, but that's kind of been his MO through his career. If his head's right, he is, world champion caliber. But if he's doesn't want to be there, he doesn't show up. So he would have to become motivated for sure against Jake.
Yeah. Then the other stuff I wanted to mention was just the potential boxing matches. Now I think he's going to have to win another fight or two. I think this is the path now. Like he's going to keep fighting bigger name MMA fights where he can win in the boxing realm, but he's going to get a big boxing fight, and that's where the money's going to be. And I got to think, like, he called out Canelo. He's not going to win. That's where the story ends. But I think like that's an actual possibility. Like I think that he could get that fight. But another fight I think he could get that they might do is Triple G. Either, but
right. I don't see that Canelo fight happening for at least a few more fights. Like Jake would really have to put it on some boxers, I think, before Canelo fought him. Okay. Triple G, maybe, because Triple G is looking for a money fight before he goes out. I feel like Canelo thinks it's, it would tarnish his legacy to do this fight that he thinks is beneath him at this point as a boxing, connoisseur. I mean, he is the pound for pound, probably number 2 in the world after Tyson Fury. But, I mean, it's so crazy that we're even talking about it, but it is a possibility that fight happens down the line.
Yeah. Because I think he's building up his name, and he's making himself into a better fight. He's putting the work in that it's going to be believable. Now, it's not really to anybody who's super hardcore and follows this, but like he's going to be able to get enough casual public attention, and there's going to be a big money fight down the road, I think, in boxing for Jake Paul, because the guys that I don't know. Like I thought they would have stopped him would have been Anderson Silva, and that didn't happen. So now I'm thinking, okay, he's going to beat Nate Diaz too. And that probably will happen. That fight will probably happen.
I would assume that fight is next, the Nate Diaz fight.
The Tommy Fury fight would have been interesting just because Tommy is young into boxing, but is a boxer. But it looks like I think Jake Paul realizes that maybe that's a dangerous fight for him. Like, why would I want to fight that guy? Because it's just Tyson's brother, and it's not like going to make me a ton of money. So he's going to keep doing what he's doing, which I think it's kind of the boxing motto, right? He's taking on safe route fights to get him the most money, most name, until he can get the big fight that he wants.
I think Jake smashes Tommy Fury at this point, based on, Tommy's last showing. And I think that's part of the reason why he didn't end up taking the fight in the last time. His family or whatever, or his team, they figured out, hey, this isn't a good fight. There's a good possibility that you're going to lose. And they pulled him from the fight, said he had a rib injury or couldn't get to America or whatever his bullshit was. But, I don't think we're going to see that fight now, because I think after this Anderson Silva fight, people are going to respect Jake a little bit more for sure. I know I do. As much as I don't want to say it, I would say he is a fighter at this point. Impressive. Good on him. He's got power. He's young. He's fast. Ever improving, greatly improving in between fights as well too. So good on him.
This is nothing new. I saw an interview with Shawn Michaels on Logan Paul's podcast, and it was interesting. Logan told a story about their dad was kind of a problem. Like he used to get involved in career, but he didn't know. Logan never knew that. And Logan was like the straight A student, wrestled in college, did all that. And he said Jake found out earlier that his dad was into stuff. And that's how Jake got nicknamed The Problem, because Jake was the one stealing iPads, and doing all this crazy stuff. And so, yeah, it's interesting to see, like, sometimes, like, how this all happened. The Paul brothers, I hate to say it, but are actually somewhat interesting to me now. And, but I just think, yes, I think at the end of the day, he's skilled enough to beat pretty much any MMA fighter in boxing.
I'd like to see the Conor one. It depends on what Conor would see. But
we need to see some Conor active in some form or shape to see what he brings to the table at this point. Like
right now, I don't have high hopes that he could fight for 3 rounds without gassing out. He's like 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So,
all right, I think we've got about 30 minutes.
Let's move on. We're moving on.
Preview, yeah.
All right, so we're going to be previewing UFC Fight Night, Rodriguez versus Lemos. So I only saw, this fight card actually, when I looked at it, a little bit better than I anticipated. But on the prelims, the only one that I found super interesting was Miranda Maverick versus Shayna Young. Mm-hmm. Miranda is a -600 favorite, and I think that's for a reason. She's incredibly strong for flyweight. I think she just takes Shayna down and beats her up for 3 rounds. We get a decision, but it is one to keep an eye out for. Miranda is a possible contender in the future. She's a good prospect. Yeah, any thoughts on the? I
like Miranda Maverick a lot too. I'm a little biased towards her. I think she's definitely got a good future. So we'll see what happens. I'm interested in this first fight on the main card.
Yeah. Grant Dawson versus Mark Madsen.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I think is super interesting is Mark is an underdog in this fight.
Interesting.
He's a silver medalist in the Olympics for Denmark, I believe, in wrestling. And he is an underdog against a grappler in Grant Dawson. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, it is interesting. I think it's a good matchup for Mark Madsen in terms of stylistically, like you brought up. Madsen, I remember he had a fight with Coy Guida, and I thought, oh, okay, Guida's getting older, and he'll probably handle this. And he won it by split decision, but it was every bit of that split. It was a close fight. Mm-hmm. So Madsen, to me, is a guy that we'll have to see if he continues to make the improvements. But despite that tremendous wrestling pedigree, like I feel there's a ceiling with him from what I've seen so far. But we'll see. These are the type of guys too, though, that they find ways to win and they get better. Grant Dawson, 18-1-1, 4 KOs, 12 subs, 2 decisions. He's 6-0-1 in the UFC right now. So I think that's probably what's making him the favorite. But Madsen's 12-0, but maybe not as active.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I got Madsen with you, and I'm saying it's going to be by decision.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Madsen by decision too. Probably a very boring fight, but I think with his grappling, he's just going to stay safe on top.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So we'll move on to forgive me for this name, Tagir Ulanbekov.
This is why you lead the show now.
Yeah, versus Nathan Manis. Yeah. So now this is a pretty good matchup.
Yeah.
You want to give out their records?
Sure. The Tiger, as you said his name there, he's 13-2, 1 KO, 6 subs, 6 decision, and Nate is 14-2, 5 KOs, 3 subs, 6 decisions. A lot of regional titles for Nate. Mm-hmm. It's going to be an interesting fight. I kind of like Nate. I've seen him fight a few times. He's a real dog. I think Nate will pull it off, but I think this is going to be another fight that might go decision.
Yeah, it's definitely a great matchup. I think Nate has the striking advantage and Tagir the grappling advantage. And I think I just favor grapplers in fights overall, especially when the margins are so small here. So I'm going to go with Tagir by decision.
Okay. Yeah,
so we'll move on to a super exciting potential matchup. I think this could potentially be fight of the night. Heavyweights Chase Sherman versus Josh Parisian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sherman is 16-10, 15 KOs, 1 decision.
The man likes a finish.
Former bare knuckle champion. And then Parisian's 15-5, 11 KOs, 2 subs. The man's only gone to decision twice. Between both these guys, 27 wins. They've only gone decision 3 times. I predicted decisions in both, but this will not be a decision.
Yeah.
I like Sherman. I think there's something my gut tells me he's going to pull this off, and I think it'll be a first round KO. Not because he's just going to. I think they're just going to go out banging.
Yeah,
and I think that's why I like
very
Sherman.
Yeah. Very possible that's what happens. Yeah. Who knows who wins in this one? Really, I like both guys, but if I had to pick a winner, I'd say Chase Sherman as well. I'm going to say they make it to the second round before they really let go. So I'll say Chase by KO in round 2.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to another good matchup, sleeper on this card, co-main event, Neil Magny versus Daniel Rodriguez.
Yeah. Magny, 26-9, 7 KOs, 3 subs, 6 decisions. Rodriguez, 17-2, 8 KOs, 4 subs, 5 decisions. He's on a 4-fight win streak. Rodriguez is tough. This is a good test for him, though, because Magny is just that ultimate martial artist in a lot of ways to me, because he's super respectful. He's always looking for ways to improve. We might have talked about it. He's a guy that got smoked by Damian Maia because of jiu-jitsu. What did he do? He started training with Damian Maia, right? And he's always getting better. He's got the longest time in the octagon and the streak. He has he's in the top of those records without even looking it up. And I don't know. Magny's a guy who consistently gets better too. I don't know. Rodriguez is a guy on the come up, but I kind of like Magny here. I think Magny gets it done. I'll say this is a decision, though.
So normally I would say Neil only loses to guys that manage to out-grapple him. And that won't be Daniel Rodriguez. No. He's a striker for sure. But Neil is, I believe, 35 now. And if Father Time is coming for him, he's going to come for him soon. Combine that with the fact that Daniel's looked great in his last few fights. He's definitely on the come up. I think I'm going to give Daniel Rodriguez the nod. I think Neil Magny will actually get finished. He's been rocked in a lot of fights, and he manages to, hold it together and come back. There's only so many times you can do that. He's 35 now. I think, if you get rocked by Daniel Rodriguez, you're in trouble because he's got a killer instinct to finish. So I think we're going to see a KO, but Magny survives to the 3rd round.
All right.
Yeah. So move on to the main event. This is main event is replacing our missed main event of Bryce Mitchell versus Evolov. So now we have Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Lemos.
All right, we got Rodriguez, who is 16-1-2, 6 KOs, 1 sub, 9 decision, and Lemos is 12-1, 7 KOs, 3 subs, 2 decisions. Both these girls got some power for their weight classes here. Just looking at those knockouts, it's an interesting fight. I think I like Rodriguez by decision.
Yeah, it's a super interesting matchup. I assume this fight is for the number 1 contender spot in the division.
Yeah.
Another, very packed division, especially towards the top. So I would say Amanda definitely has the power advantage when it comes to the striking, but Rodriguez would be the more technical striker. So if Lemos wants to win, I think path to victory would be if she tried to mix in some takedowns and maybe, get Rodriguez thinking about those. They open her up for, some powerful striking from Lemos. But I still think that Rodriguez probably handles any takedown attempts, whether stopping the takedown or managing to get up, and just outpoints Lemos. I think she wins in a decision, moves on. She deserves a title shot if she wins, I think.
I hope she gets it. Now, it should be an interesting card. I believe we have a program. Do we have some Cage My IQ stuff coming up today, too?
Yes, we do. So Producer Joe had some technical difficulties with the John Wayne Parr interview from Cage My IQ, so all rectified now. So we're going to be putting out both interviews with John Wayne Parr and with John Anik, UFC commentator John Anik. So looking forward to watching both of those for sure. Thanks again to Cage My IQ for the collaboration and being a friend of the show. So looking forward to watching those videos.
Absolutely. And let's, tell them what we got coming up.
All right. November 12th, we'll be previewing UFC 281, Adesanya versus Pereira. And then November 19th, UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Spivak, 4 p.m. card. And then the end of the month, November 26th, we'll be previewing the 2022 PFL Championships.
Yep. And also, by the way, for fans of Cage My IQ too, our interview that I did with former WCW wrestler Stevie Ray of Harlem Heat is on there right now. And we do talk a little bit of boxing, a little bit of MMA. Stevie loves to talk about pretty much anything. Yeah. So that's some good stuff too. But I think that'll do it for this week, guys. It was a fun show as always, Chevy. But I think it's time to get on out of here.
Yeah.
All right.